Hi, I'm Erin Jordan, and this is my first live cast on YouTube. Here to talk about 2017 writing resolutions and also about stunt writing. If anybody remembers this, here's kind of the book for stunt writing. And I think that especially this year has been hard for a lot of people. And a lot of people that I know, a lot of my friends have had a really rough year. I've had a bit of a rough year. And refocusing and recentering after a difficult time, whether it was politics, whether it was a move, whether it was losing a loved one or relationship ending. There are a lot of things that I think a lot of people went through this year that could absolutely affect and influence the kind of questions and way of putting together their writing practice for the next year. So one thing for Stunt Writing 101 is for those of you who've used the system before and have been my students before, you probably have a very good idea of how to put together a plan. For those of you who have never used stunt writing as a method for putting together a plan for your writing practice and pushing yourself, I highly recommend going to the Memoir Class website and getting a chance to find out some information about exactly what that looks like. There's a downloadable PDF at the store at memoirclass.com / I think it's shop. And there's also, if you just Google or put in information about stunt writing for personal growth, there's a lot of information there about how to use stunt writing as a kind of a scaffolding for whatever it is that's bothering you. Okay, so just to kind of I would say one thing that's really bothering me this year is politics. And no matter who you voted for, I think we all, as Americans, have a little bit of a distrust and possible dislike. Sorry, I'm going to welcome everybody here of what's going on in the political scene. And for me, for instance, one is the North Dakota pipeline access across the Sioux land. And I was thinking, how could I turn that into a stunt writing format for the next year? So for instance, I was thinking, whether that's your issue or whether it's something else, you could always become an expert. I was thinking how hard it would be just to research it, perhaps, and try to be a voice of reason within the argument, or whether it's putting together some sort of something that would help. I know it's very, very cold there right now. So putting together a care package is another one that I thought of. Another one would be perhaps sending letters to the companies that want to put the pipeline through the land that's so sacred to Americans. And another would perhaps be, I don't know, there's so many things that you can do, but I do think that perhaps some writing a reaction to it or interviewing somebody who's actually right now and helping to get the word out from their point of view, what is on the street, what they are, not the street, excuse me, in the camp, what they are seeing go on and what the mood is there. So that would be an example of kind of yourself involved with the political process. So, picking one thing that's bugging you, for me, it would be the pipeline. I don't see any reason why they have to go through land that's incredibly important to Native Americans who were here first and received very poor handling from the United States government and a lot of the settlers that came in. There's no reason that it has to go through there. So it seems like as if it's not that big of an ask It's just money to write around it, and how to explain and how to communicate that story as well as you can, or help to communicate that story. Or in some cases, it might be how to amplify that story. So perhaps you see something that's really pertinent about the Dakota pipeline access, and you put together a reader for your friends, and you say, hey, these are the 5 best links that I've read about this issue. If you'd like to become or educate yourself about this particular issue, that's one way that you can do it. So I just want to welcome everybody to my first live cast. Obviously, this is probably going to be a little hard. It is very strange to talk to yourself, and I'm definitely open to accepting questions. So if you have any questions, on the right-hand side, you should have a text box where you can enter any questions about what you've been thinking about. I've just been talking about how to use stunt writing as a possible way to become integrated, or as a way to interact with our political system, or wherever you are around the world. You could absolutely use it as a scaffolding or a method for either learning about or communicating about a political position. Another thing that I think could be interesting in these days and times is that as we're coming upon the holidays, thinking about 2017 and what you want to bring into the next year, is thinking about your community and how you could put together your own stunt writing group, which would be to show the format to a group of friends, which would allow you to each pick things and then meet separately, almost like a book group. So therefore you could have a stunt writing group that would allow people to get together and meet almost like a book group, but support each other in real time. So very much like what we did online, but in person, and having perhaps somebody who's gone through the process before be the leader of that group in terms of kind of teaching others how to do it. So that was one thought I had about how to use stunt writing in interacting with the political process. The next question I kind of wanted to go over, and I'm not seeing any questions here. So if you've asked a question, I'm not seeing anything. But how do I know what is a good topic for my stunt? I think whatever is making you mad is always a really great place to start with coming up with a topic for your stunt. There are so many things. You can just read the paper and come up with something that is annoying you and then work with that. I think that, yeah, anything that gets under your skin, because that's what's going to keep you going for the entire 4 to 5 week process, is something that gets your goat, so to say. So anything that you're passionate about, I think that's the first thing to know that it's a good topic. Anything that you're kind of scared of, anything that has been nagging you. For instance, I was speaking to a friend today who told me that she was finally going to get rid of all the boxes in her house. And she had moved in maybe 4 years previous, but that was a really big step for her to finally get rid of the things that are in the boxes and kind of commit in some ways to creating a nurturing space for herself. Yeah, so that's how I would say that it's a good topic. If you have any questions about a topic that you're thinking about, you're always free to email me at erin@memoirclass.com. Let's see here. The next question: what is the best way to figure out what type of real world actions I should take? And I can kind of go over some of the things that I think makes a good real world action. And that's going through the PRISM exercise, which is also up on my website. And what that allows you to do is use geography, race, gender, class, religion, politics, culture, and history as a way of shining light on whatever your question or problem happens to be of whatever you're circling. So for instance, let's say going back to the North Dakota pipeline access issue that's going on right now, geography. I mean, there are so many ways to look at that in terms of who originally settled on that land. What is the history of the relationships of the different people who have fought and consider that land to be their home? Also, who is considered to be stewards of that land, and what different people have responsibility for it, whether it's legal or whether it's historical responsibility or even a sacred responsibility to that land. Race, obviously, that's a really big issue in our country in terms of how we treated our Indigenous people as we began to set out to create a country. I mean, that's sort of like 101 for maybe perhaps going to a local reservation or an academic department, or speaking to someone who carries some of that history and knowledge might be a way to kind of interact with that. Gender, I mean, it's I would say that since the 70s that's the time when women really started feeling like as if they could pick up and go to a North Dakota and actually protest and be a part of that. I don't know what protests were like previous to that, whether someone would actually, get up and leave. People have a lot more free time, leisure time now. I read something in the news about there were a bunch of military Marines who had said that they were going to all deploy there and help to keep the peace. That would be a really interesting thing to look into if there's any history, or if you have any military in your family, or just interviewing somebody, finding out what that is all about and who is organizing that. There's just so many things going on. There's so much to be educated about. Obviously, religion. What religion, or why is this sacred land, and why this land in particular? So there's just so many ways that you could interact with this one idea. And there's so many ways that you could think about how to kind of understand what the true issues are, what the true problem is, and help to be a kind of a light in your own community to talk about or figure out how to, I guess, be a resource for other people. I think we all are kind of looking for a little bit of guidance. Okay, so let's go on to the next question. We're about 15 minutes into the live cast. We have about 15 minutes left. Okay, so when do I know if I'm pushing myself or too much? How do I know if I'm not pushing myself enough? I think that definitely a lot of the examples that I've come up with are kind of passive learning examples of research, or just kind of talking to somebody, or trying to figure out the background, reading. But definitely in this case, there's a lot of active things that you could do, whether it's, putting together those care packages, or perhaps writing, having a pen pal or an email relationship with somebody who can explain what it's like to be part of that process there. Another thing, but does that mean that you actually need to give up your job and actually leave your job and go to North Dakota? That might be extreme for you. And if you don't have those kind of resources, then that's not necessarily what's needed in that situation. So definitely not doing any harm, but at the same time, trying to take some sort of active intervention beyond, or get deep in those. In journalism, they call it primary sources, people who are actually there on the ground, and finding out what they're thinking and feeling, and how that relates back to why this is such an issue for you, why this is your problem or the thing that you're circling around. Let's see here. Next question is, that is my cat, George. Hey, George. Do you want to be live? Come here, baby. He's a big old baby. You want to say hi? There you are. I know. George should be the star. Okay, but there you go. All right, so the question is, what are some tips for filling out my findings? I think that the more and more that I see people actually using artwork, the more in-depth and interesting their work tends to get. I think writing can be great, especially for looking at your past or kind of getting deep into your own personal feelings. But when it comes to making something that's an external expression, or something that you might want to show to somebody, or something that's kind of like perhaps a little bit more symbolic, I think drawing, mapping, collage, all of those things are really wonderful. I know people have done comics before, which is incredibly cool. Also, there's just a lot of different opportunities to sculpt something, make an outfit. Trying to think of some other ways. I think that there's just amazing opportunities to not just write, or to use text in a different form. So to me, it's kind of amazing that we wear all these clothes that have logos and things on them, when it makes more sense to me if we were just to wear a white t-shirt and write a different slogan in marker on it every day. Kind of using yourself as a billboard. So yeah, I think in terms of filling out your findings, you should go with whatever feels good for you at that moment. And for me, sometimes words have not come easily, and it really was a lot easier and a lot more interesting just to get my hands moving with some colors, you know, and moving with that, rather than really trying to force some sort of story out of something that perhaps wasn't ready to come. Okay, so another question. How do I form a stunt writing group on my own for a sense of community? And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, which is that there's no reason that there has to be a one teacher and 1,000 students for stunt writing. It's something that in every community people could be doing, kind of using the PDF, which is a scaffolding or kind of an understanding of how to use and what the structure is for writing up a stunt. So I think that it would just be really fascinating to see how other people would run a stunt writing group on their own. And I'm hoping at some point to be able to kind of teach other people how to take that into their communities and use that. I think that how do you use a stunt writing group for your own sense of community? Another way would be to teach it as a method to kids, which is pretty interesting. I know that in the past, I've worked with people of all ages, and I think children come up with stuff that's very simple, but also very wise. So whether it is taking on something like littering, taking on something like bullying, which has become such a major issue, I think kids sometimes bring a intense sense of wisdom to stunt writing, and I think they're a little closer to the experiential aspect, in the sense that they can come up with interesting and fantastical ways of communicating their own personal truth. Yeah. So anyway, I think that I'm going to check again and see if I can find if anybody has sent in any questions. This is my first time using this, and there is a really good chance that I'm using it wrong. So let's see here. Let's see here. It has been extremely interesting trying to figure out how to use the technology here, using YouTube. In the future, I would like to be able to actually have a classroom and use this as a classroom. But at the same time, if you can't really interact, which I think is part of it, but I haven't really quite 100% figured it out, I think that that could be an issue. So if you have any feelings about what this has been like for you, please feel free to send them to me and let me know what it's felt like being part of a kind of like one-way live cast. I would be incredibly curious to find out what that's felt like and whether any of this was useful for you. Let's see here. Yeah. But otherwise, I think I'm going to round this out. I have not seen any questions, or I'm just not using this properly. So I don't know if there's any questions. I'll type it in right here. Any questions? It takes a while for that to come up. Hopefully I can ask everybody later if they were able to see the texts and hear me and actually see me. But I think ending on the note of 2017 and making resolutions, which is that when I was a kid, 2017 definitely felt like something that was a million years away. That is a very futuristic number to me. And when I meet kids who are born, you know, in the O's, I guess is what we're calling them, it is just still a little bit shocking to me. The time has passed so quickly, but that I think there are some old-fashioned goals that we have, whether it's kind of getting in touch with our bodies, our minds, kind of staying away from technology and trying to become as purely who we are as possible. Or I think there's also lots of futuristic resolutions you can have, trying to open up your mind to things that are coming at you that are new, like this live cast, things that are confusing, things that you see starting to come at you on the periphery, such as live teaching for me, and how to integrate those or be open to that as the world just changes so incredibly quickly. And I think that for 2017, for me and for my writing goals, it'll probably be a mix of both of those. You know, I've been reading stories of people who are, you know, very big into fiction or stories via text. So being texted a little bit of a story every day. Then at the same time, I've seen, you know, in television, there are people who are telling amazing stories, and the level of documentaries that are coming out is just completely incredible. So kind of being able to use a little bit of both, of personal and perhaps more organic resolutions, doing more yoga, trying to be healthier, thinking positively, you know, those things that are aspirational for us, of having a good day. What is a pillar of a good day for you? What is a recipe for a good day for you? And then also, I think some of the things where, why now? Why 2017? Why is that the time that you want to focus on this one specific skill? You know, with the rise of people doing a lot of storytelling, or live storytelling, perhaps now is the time for you to go out and approach the moth, or like for instance for me, or the idea of being online like this is absolutely intriguing. So trying this, dipping my toe in, even if it's a kind of a bit of a disaster, just getting a chance to experience and feel what this is like, to me is very futuristic and very interesting. And also, in every single chance or every single time you try it, you get a chance to figure out what out of the experience you like that you want to take into the future, and what out of the experience just really doesn't work and that perhaps is just not meant to be for you. So I guess I would end by saying, you know, having a sense of both organic and futuristic, new novel resolutions, how you're going to use that with your writing, whether you're going to go back to pencil and paper, or whether perhaps for your 27 resolutions, you're going to try a different or a new kind of app in order to figure out what is going to work best for you. But either way, I wish everyone a huge amount of luck. There is going to be, I think there's more things to write about now. I think it's a great time to be interacting with all of the political issues and changing. Everything is changing around us constantly, and I think it is a great time to be a writer. It is a great time to tell your story. It is a great time to build empathy between different people, because as we well know, I think in this last election, I don't think we really saw our presidential candidates able to look at each other and have any empathy. It was so nasty, and there was a huge lack of compassion, and in terms of actually understanding what the other person is saying and then coming up with a knowledgeable response. So I think storytelling and I think that communication are the ways that we build bridges between each other. And I think that creating resolutions and stunt writing plans that work for that is just another way of making this world a better place. So I want to thank everybody. And also, I wanted to mention that if you missed this, I'll probably be putting it up on my website. But if you do have any questions, and I realize this was my first time trying to do a live cast, and it may not have been completely working, but I just want to encourage you to drop me a line, erin@memoirclass.com, and I will answer any questions that you have about if you're putting together a stunt writing plan right now, or about how to use stunt writing in your community. But otherwise, I think I'm going to do another one. I think this was kind of fun. And next time, hopefully a little bit higher quality. This is a very green picture. I look like I'm a little bit underwater. So I give my best to everyone. I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season. And I want to thank you all for coming and being a part of the community of my writing practice and teaching practice. Thank you. Happy holidays. Bye.